Welcome to We Time Convo. I'm Debbie.
And I'm Liza. And today's episode, we are diving into a hot topic in education, the impact of AI in the classroom. As tools like ChatGPT become more accessible, students are increasingly turning to AI for help with everything from research to writing essays. But how are teachers keeping up? How do they spot when students are relying on AI to do the heavy lifting?
Today, we're joined by two high school educators on the front lines of this shift, Dawn Marie and Russ. They'll share their insights on how AI is affecting student work, the strategies they use to maintain academic integrity, and what the future of AI is in education might look like. Hi, everyone. So, topic for you. It's a rising topic. It's like the biggest thing that's coming in tech, which is the talk of AI. And how the rise of AI, particularly tools like ChatGPT, impact the way students approach assignments and research. So, have you guys noticed any significant changes in the quality of student work since the AI tools have become widely available?
Oh, by the way, we have some guest hosts here.
Yes. Sorry. I just went right and dived right in. So we have Russ and Anne-Marie with us again.
Dawn Marie.
Dawn Marie.
I can be Anne-Marie today. It's all right.
Nice.
I'll just
Dawn Marie.
Dawn Marie. Yeah, so thank you guys for coming.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
Our IEP rocker here. And Dawn Marie, our sex ed / physical education expert.
Yeah, sure.
Love having you guys on. So thank you,
Liza.
So
thank you, Debbie.
we need to pick your brains about this because it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
And me and you, Debbie, and well, we all have kids that are in school.
Yeah.
So
Yes, but I will tell you, there is a fine line between assistance and cheating, right?
Yeah.
And I am a big proponent that this is an assistance.
The way you're looking at it
Yeah.
and how you're utilizing it.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. But then I definitely can see how this could be cheating.
Yes.
So I don't know. You guys, I mean, you tell me, have you guys experienced this at all with any of your students?
Our colleagues definitely a lot. And then
Our colleagues, and I had my first submission of work this week that I am confident is not original work.
Mm.
And so I would say, like, if we take a step back, what do you think the purpose of an education is? What do you think you should be able to do as a result of a reasonably decent education? Should you be able to answer difficult questions, or should you be able to analyze data and ask tough questions?
Is that a question?
That's a question.
That's the question.
That's a question.
So, I mean, like the way I use AI is really to get my juices flowing. And when I ask a question, it really is, I already have a thought or idea of how I want to say or what the answer is. And so in my mind, when I use it, I already have an idea of what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
But again, when I use AI, it's in the context of it simplifies a lot of the information and puts it in a format where it's easier for me to digest and say, yep, that's exactly what I wanted. I could tweak it, obviously, because I'm like, you know what, that's not exactly, but you know what, the formatting, the information's all there, and then I can tweak it. But when I use it, it really is more around, I already have a set idea of what that answer or what I would be expecting.
Yeah. So then you're not using it just purely to regurgitate information or...
No, it's definitely not a copy paste exercise, right? And that's the part where I think if you're asking or you're using it as a copy paste and you don't even understand what it's spitting out, then you've lost that sense of how this can actually help you.
Yeah.
So Russ, when you saw that the student or felt that it wasn't the student's, the
student never spoke like this before.
So what were your, what did you do?
Well, so then the student asked me a real specific question in my class. And then I gave like a rambling kind of answer. And the question they asked was like, how could you tell the difference between a student and an adult voice? Like, your parents' voice.
That's a good question. Yeah.
And so I said, well, I think the purpose of writing is for you to like find a voice. I don't expect you to have one, but I like have a good idea of what you're capable of at your age, like what, about the range of responses. I don't expect you to have like maturity and experience beyond your years, but I do expect you to be able to like think and say, I know, I don't know, or here's what I think. But then I got this response. It was, first of all, there was a series of numbers and summary, and I said, and so that gave it away. And so I'm like, okay, well, you're like, so the concern is like, in many cases, my students don't care enough even to cheat. And then when I ask them to think, they would go to this. And so I have a student that submitted work and so I responded in Canvas. I said, we will sit down next week and discuss the questions and your responses, because I don't think that they're yours. And that's not what was intended. Yeah. You would do better in my class to submit nothing than to submit the robot work.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I talk all the time about AI, my concern. Like, I grew up in the Terminator era, right? And that's
don't trust that.
That's the vision of the future, is that they become aware, and that is what AI is that it is awareness. Like, and I have least enough respect for that. I don't think the computers should be writing. I don't think the computers should be constructing art. That's not their purpose. Yeah, they should be mining. They should be cleaning the floors. They should be like making tasks that are like dangerous safer. But they shouldn't be writing poetry or song or submitting essays. Like, they should. That is what we do. We are a creative species.
Yeah. Or writing other people's vows.
Yeah. Or I have a family member and they thought that, hey, we've joked around about writing children's books. There's an AI platform putting out there to help you write a children's book. So she thought, hey, I want my kids to be published. They're 7 and 4. That would look really great for college. And then I joked around, I'm like, so you had an AI program write a children's book, and then she's finding an AI program to illustrate the children's book. And I'm all, so the kids were helped out by their parent to do this. It wasn't their design and wanting. And even though she got feedback from them, then plug that into the computer, this isn't a true artistic venue. This isn't something that speaks. This is just another check off the box. My daughter's in a great school. Her 8th grade teacher, English teacher, her son's at Berkeley, former student. And she was very honest during back to school night. She's like, look, a lot of the colleges are getting these papers with the AI prompts and writing. And now the colleges are going to start flipping, like, I need to interview you, Debbie, and talk to you and see if this is your voice. Because you can pick up on people and this is their voice or not, and it transfers into writing. So now they're writing, but now they have to do a script and they had to do a podcast. They have to develop and put other interpersonal skills. So you can still get factual information. Like, I've used AI to clean up my sentence structure, definitely, when I'm writing some things. I was saying, like, I get interrupted quite a bit at work. And so it helps me, like, let me put this down. Can you clean up? Great. That sounds, I'm still checking for punctuation and the flow, but it helps me just make it a little bit more linear for myself. When they're just directly cut and pasting work, and when they're not analyzing it, that's where our education needs to come back in. I don't think the tool is going to go away, but our students...
It's definitely not going away.
Yeah. No. The cleanup needs to occur quite a bit, and the synthesize and the analyzing of information. Because like Russ was just saying, very much so, it's not creative. It's just cut and paste for a lot of kids. So now we have it in our handbook. It's going to think, and our English and history departments are definitely cracking down on what students are turning in as written work, because it's not their voice. And that's going to be a little bit scary if everybody thinks it's okay. Because even look at, I think Instagram, you can have an AI different voice. It will edit your responses to somebody, like make it more funny or make it this or that. So you're not really getting the connection. Yeah. You're just getting what that algorithm's wanting to pump out, and then that's pumping out more information. So those interpersonal skills are going to even go down further.
It's just wild.
How often do you use AI? Because I use it every day.
You know what? So I use it every day as well. And actually, I don't know if this sounds bad, but I ask it like relationship questions, and it actually answers me better than any of my friends.
Well, yeah, because your other friend that was on, she uses the Gemini.
Yeah.
Was discussing.
Oh, yeah. Violent. And I'm like, whoa, like this is eye-opening, because it will just say, look, so this is why you're thinking this way. And, this is...
But that's someone else who programmed that program. Right. And so you might like what they're saying, but you still have to process and analyze that information. When you have young kids who are like, hey, just put this in, and they don't have the wherewithal to think that someone else has been programming this computer system or this algorithm to pump out information, that gets a little scary when it's so trusting of our youth to go like, oh yeah, this is the right information. Like when Wikipedia came out, like you can edit it. And
I just feel like our youth, if they use this, they're not thinking.
No, they're not.
There's the rub.
Yeah, that's
so the part is like teaching you to think about the information you've been given. Yes. Have you been in a relationship or personal interchange where someone was dishonest?
And how do
you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? Like if you're given a list of 6 things and 1 or 2 of them is false, how would you be able to decide that if you don't have some experience thinking and synthesizing not everybody wants to play Watson detective, but we are presented with falsehood all the time.
And we come from a generation where I got my information from an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I had to go to the library to do research, spent hours at the library reading books, making photocopies of books.
Yeah.
These kids, have it so easy now. Like they have the internet, they have Chat GPT.
They can get porn so easily. They don't have to go down to the little market.
They don't have to go to the Blockbuster.
Which is a life experience no one should miss.
Back room.
Yeah.
The back room.
Yeah.
The back room behind the curtain. But they also forget that they have tiny computers in their hands. I'll say that much, because they still ask simple, basic questions, but you shouldn't, be analyzing data and analyzing anything. I think some of the AI for the medical field, it might be able, if someone programs it right, to detect maybe breast cancer. They were talking about in the...
it's doing a better job at screenings than the human eye.
Yeah. That platform should be talked and analyzed, because you still have to... The doctor still has to analyze this and go, this looks like something I've seen before or not, even though I think we're using the computer to say it's all truth and law and perfect, where someone could be manipulating that algorithm for their own any way they want. Look at all the stuff that AI is coming out with. People will put celebrities' heads on different characters and things. That's kind of scary, because it could be your image next on somebody else's body. Correct. Doing something somewhere across the world. Or look, we just talked about Diddy and his situation. What if somebody altered that video? Eventually it becomes that good where we can put somebody else's face on their body and they're committing a crime or a heinous act.
It's already that good.
Yeah.
It is. That part is, as Russ was talking about, the scary part of who's actually in control of that program.
And for you listeners that have not experienced AI, you need to jump on this, because it moves so fast, so quick. And it's for me, I feel like it's such a great tool. But the other spectrum of that is how dangerous.
Well, you got to live a life without it.
Yes.
Right? We've all got to live a life without it. Going back to the Encyclopedia Britannica, we all had textual, hands-on. We had to go somewhere to get information or talk to people and really get information. Our kids are not going to have to do any of that. They literally...
Yes. Well, I mean, even to Liza's point, right? You asked some relationship questions. In all honesty, you can go through and not even actually have a conversation with a live person. You can just do it all through AI.
Yeah. I've even created an AI boyfriend.
Yeah, because our friend, the last podcast we did, created an AI. But that's scary too, because it's a relationship. You're loving the output,
of it, right?
Yeah, it's not like
even on the back end, right? And like it like for me, I'm not a very techie person, but the idea of something so powerful that can spit out these responses and answers to your questions so quickly, I don't know, that is just, I can't even comprehend how that even happens.
Well, think about it also, we're talking about the creative part, like it writing a hit song or something. That's not the creative process of human synapse in the brain and everybody connecting it. It's just somebody being happy for instant gratification, thinking they're going to make money or do something, or writing a children's book to make money, to prosper and go on. We're going to get a lot of crap information because the AI is somebody just like, let me just write something and put it out there to make a profit, I think.
Well, there's a lot of danger, obviously, with AI.
Yeah.
So,
Well, going back to the classroom, I don't even know. Is AI banned or anything at our school? So they're not, so our students use Chromebooks. You cannot pull it up on a Chromebook like Chat GPT or anything like that?
You can pull ChatGPT up on Chromebooks unless they have restricted access, but that's done by the user. Most of the English department requires students to use turnitin.com, and what that does is that assesses the originality of your writing. So that looks at, so it's essentially a database, and
it's another AI.
And papers are fed into it,
Yeah.
and then it compares the new paper to all the papers it's received before, and so it looks at, like, because students are reading the same books, they're writing the same claims, but are they writing it
in their voice?
In their voice originally, and that's what we're trying to teach you. We're trying to teach you to synthesize material, right? Make a claim, offer your evidence, and offer your reasoning. Like I think there's like this fantasy that, like, I want to get done with this assignment, not learn to do something that this assignment is practice for. This assignment means little. Your ability to gather information, identify points that are important, and then like analyze them is what your life work looks like.
Yep. Well, I think that's what, to me, like, as you mentioned, Russ, having that interaction, right? Like, not necessarily like live interaction.
Yeah.
Right. So now, because of knowing AI, its capabilities, I think it's even more so important to have that live interaction with students, right? Because they can't fake that, right? Like, you're in classroom, you're asking a question, and you can actually see them thinking, or in some cases maybe really struggling. But again, that is,
which is what you should be doing,
right?
You should be struggling.
Exactly. It's not meant to make it easier for you. It's really, so to me, it's great that they have these tools that may be able to detect it. But I think it becomes even more important to focus on, well, being present, having that live interaction, because that's the part that I think when we're talking about our experiences is that live interaction, right?
Oh,
and that's where we learned.
Yeah. And I have one of the better disciplines where I need to, teaching physical education, I have to see you perform the skill. It's not you turning in something 99% of the time. So I have to see, hey, we're doing line dancing and stuff like that right now. I need to see you perform the steps, come in on the right beat and know the moves. Other people do not get the discipline to be watching their student do that. Mm-hmm. And so I have one of the few things, the team aspect too, of gathering and the communication skills. You can see that's still very hard about how to give feedback, but it's very practical because you're on a team with a family, you're on a team with your work colleagues. How do you communicate your wants and needs? You can't always type it into ChatGPT to produce that. Might help script some stuff.
Yeah.
But when it's live in action, playing and stuff, that bond and community is something that is gonna have to be fostered. And hopefully in the school setting and family and stuff, not everybody gets on their device, but actually is looking at each other, making that eye contact and everything, and putting that stuff into practice. Because you're going to see a lot of skill set, I think, go from really big here, where some people are able to process the information and some people are just like, we're talking about, I just want to produce something. I just want to get the grade. I want to get this over with.
Yep.
Instead of, we're not encouraging. Every scientist, right, failed repeatedly at something they were doing. Every inventor failed repeatedly at something they were doing. That's the motherhood of invention, failure. We don't teach enough that it's all right to fail. It's that grit of how you get back up and continue on. Yep. AI can't teach that. I feel like there might not.
Right. Giving folks a chance to get the right answer first. That we weren't asking you necessarily for the right response. We were asking you to participate in a process.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a good point. We need to drive back.
Struggle.
Yeah.
Correct. Writing isn't like I turn in the paper and I'm done. I had an idea, I put it on paper and it's done. Writing is like we think, we scribble, we make notes, we submit a draft, we get feedback, we revise it, we edit it, and we turn it in. And no one wants to do the we revise it, we edit it, and turn it in a second time. They think like, oh, I responded. I responded to AI. I put it in AI. Here's your paragraph.
I mean, people value time, right? And so they're trying to get through something so quick to move on to the next thing.
I think we value time differently though now, where we think produce, we're done, it's over with. And then we get to goof off and goof off and goof off. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, no, you need to work a little bit harder to get everything that you want in life. And that's where we're missing that point. I think with a lot of our students, it's instant gratification. How Russ was just talking about, like, we need to start creating and guiding our kids. Like, it's all right. You don't know the right answer right off the bat. No one should have that pressure on themselves to get it done the first time.
Well, I remember there was a conversation within our mommy group of, the youth basically like, hey, they just do things just to make it, they're smart. They figure it out. And the one of our moms were like, no, they're not smart. They're lazy. It's called lazy. It's not called smart. And then another mom's perspective was, no, they're smart because they figured out the easiest way to get something done.
Oh, it's just you're looking at it.
Right? Like they don't want, they figured out like, I don't have to struggle. So let me just do it this way and boom, done.
Yeah.
And no, that's called lazy. Yeah. But I mean, I can see both sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the model that a lot of things work in? Do your relationships work like that?
Yeah.
Well, now that you have an AI boyfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, can you be right and have that conversation not take as long as it needs to? Is it a series of perfect interactions that make a relationship last long, or is it like the act of forgiveness and stuff like that, like a much different process? It's failing, apologizing, forgiveness, and recommittal. Like that's, it's about
critical thinking.
It's about repetitive failure more than it is about like being right and being done first.
True that. Yeah. So Dawn Marie and Russ, so do you believe that the majority of students are using AI as a shortcut, or do you think that they see it as a legitimate educational tool?
I don't think it's been around long enough for us to have that discussion if it's a legitimate tool, because it popped up and then everybody from some of our other disciplines were very freaked out by it because it's just a lot of cut and paste. If you were to see it at turnitin.com, it's pulling stuff from the internet and say we all turn in the same paper. I've in the past used it and kids like, oh, well, I was using their computer and that's why it looks like I took some of their information. Mm-hmm. It's easy to shoot any information through Google Docs and everywhere else. So I think it could be used as a tool, but it's still so new in the education system where it's like a lot of people are freaked out by it, just meaning someone's cut and pasting other people's work. I think it could be used as a creative process of, hey, we need to step back and how are we going to utilize this? You have to be a critical thinker. This isn't in your voice. This is a robotic answer that's coming out. It's bland. So a lot of kids are just turning in bland work and you can tell right away with it. It's not in their voice. So,
and I don't know what the percentages are of students using it, but I know that this year specifically, I'm being much more intentional about the questions I'm asking, about the work I'm assigning, to avoid the possibility that I can be confused by your submission.
Yeah.
Got it. Is there like training for kids, like an actual training of like, hey, here's AI, here's what it is, here's the risk, here's the benefits, like the formalized training of this tool?
I don't think we are not training students as a district. I know I've gotten a limited amount of opportunities for development as an adult, but the tool is out there. It's being used.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that would be the next wave.
But that's what I'm saying is because even at my work, AI is out there, and it's like some people embrace it, some people never use it because they're just not familiar with it. But the ones that eventually use it get really familiar with it. But as it like within my company, it's a pretty hot topic to say that we need to get educated on it, understand the full risk, blah, blah, but not just, individuals, but like, how do we bring that out to all employees? Because we don't know who's using what, and they may not be aware. So there's this big push to make sure that they get educated as well, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, when I think about our youth, who's educating them on this other than saying like, you shouldn't do the copy paste?
Yeah, because you're going to also look at jobs, right? That's, I think what you're talking about is it's going to change the landscape of a lot of jobs, because now you can have one person plugging in and asking. If you're able to dissect and analyze what you want the computer to actually put out, the AI to you, might not need 5 people. You might need the one who's really good and crafty with their sentence structure in there.
Yeah, like to educate our youth is like, AI is here. It's not going to go away. So you should understand what this AI is, other than, hey, this is great. I can now like say what I need to say and it'll spit out a paper that I can just copy paste.
Yeah.
But then I'm getting people saying, don't copy paste. I just don't understand. Like, I'm not understanding why I shouldn't be copying and pasting.
Why you shouldn't?
Yes.
Oh, well, it's not in your voice, the creative process. You're talking about factual information too. You need someone to analyze it. It's one thing if you're like, hey, give me the quickest route from California to Nevada. You can see and check on a map that there's actually all these roads. When we're talking about like, hey, I need you to analyze why this process should be different from this process. You can put some facts in there, but it still has to be in your voice and tone about producing anything like that. Or like I said, like writing a poem or a song. You can't just cut and paste that. That's not a creative process anymore. That's just rote information. So students might take rote facts and think that's just enough. That's where they need to draw the line.
And I totally get that. I think there could be just students who just go, but I don't care.
Yeah. Oh,
like I don't care about that. But the reason why they don't care is they don't really understand like finding your voice, right? The benefit of like walking them through like, hey, there's this self-discovery. There's this process that you're totally missing out on that you just are not aware of. And that's what it's taking away from you.
Yeah. Or looking in the medical field too, where it can analyze x-rays or something like that. But then you still have people who want to invent, the computer's not going to know like, hey, this patient gets really nervous when the needle comes. What can we do and create a different process for that? I don't think the computer's ever going to spit out like, hey, let me invent something for you to make this process easier. So that's where we still need that creative juice and analyzing, and our inventors and people going like, well, here's a problem. How do we get to this solution? And not just the rote facts. Because like, right, I get there's just information that's quick and easy, but also we need people to be reading actually what's being produced.
I think you should take your kids, stick them in a room, take away the electronics, give them a stack of encyclopedias, A through Z, and a typewriter, and tell them 500 words, and you need to count it one by one.
Yeah.
Because that's how we have to do it.
Excuse me.
Wow.
They look at you like you're crazy.
Data processing.
Yeah, you're like, whew.
The data processing, was the killer app, right? Word
Yeah.
was the reason that we all have computers now on our desk, Word and Excel. the ability to crunch numbers and the ability to data process, count the words in your essay in an easy manner. That's the reason that computers are everywhere. If they hadn't been useful, we wouldn't all have them. They wouldn't be everywhere, but they're getting smarter too. We could give computers the ability to think and respond and summarize. We can give them, like, they're getting to that level where they're doing it well. We can get them to a place where they can recognize pieces of images like x-rays very well. Will they make, and what will they say about a moral question?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's someone programming.
Because the Germans agreed with a final solution for a percentage of their population in the 30s.
Yeah.
What will the computers say when they think we might be the problem?
Or we should just show all these
could
kids.
Be a reasonable way to interpret what's happened to the world.
Well, we should make these kids watch Terminator 1, 2.
Agree. The singularity.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think it's a good debate to constantly have and go, how is this supposed to work in the workforce, medical fields, everywhere, and take that interpersonal.
It should be a dialogue. It shouldn't be like a one-time thing. We need to assess its capability and be thinking about like how we work with it or on what work we'll accept.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely feel like AI should now be like something in school that they learn about the risks, like
there should be a whole scope,
as a course, right? Because it's not going away. It's getting stronger. It's getting faster. It's being used a lot more. We're behind.
Oh, sure.
We are behind, and our kids are continuing to use it. And there's, it's like a perfect storm, right? We had COVID. Kids were out of school. Now you have this. Like there is going to be this gap, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to grow of, our next generation of kids who aren't going to even understand like our concept of going through the process, finding your voice. They're just like that concept they're not even going to understand it.
Or like I'm joking around about taking away all the technology. Yeah. What happens when the power does go out? Like how can you handle your life if the power really went out? And, we've had all maybe experienced as parents now, like, hey, the Wi-Fi went out and having a kid go, what the
freak
hell?
out. Yeah.
Freak out.
I can't see it.
They don't know what to do.
Well, let me show you. Like, how can you?
Is everybody board game capable?
Yeah.
You want to start churning some butter?
Yikes.
But we need to have those two extremes possibly to show like, how do you survive without the technology to spitting out information? It's great to think some of it, I would hope, be like the Jetsons. My house gets cleaned.
I love it.
Yeah. Someone else is bringing food in the house and it's just there, my thought process. Also, I look at it too, some of the technology of people getting older, how's that going to really help them out, not feel lonely and isolated, and the technology for adaptable devices and things like that. There's a great big field out there for everybody. So we can use it for good and capabilities. And then some people always in the education system, like, I just turned this in. I did this rote thing. We need to start as educators revamping our outlook about a lot of things. Cause I always find it crazy. Like my colleagues and I write tests or come up with the work or analyze, even though we have standards, no one's ever monitoring what we're actually creating and producing. And then these kids are going off to college or whatever. I'm like, how did we all become in charge of their knowledge and what they should know and not know and stuff? And so that's very eye-opening about, we need to educate not only at school, but home and everywhere else about life stuff.
Well, I can tell you, to answer your question in regards to kind of stopping that whole, like what happens when the Wi-Fi goes out. So during the holidays, I experienced kids actually enjoy interaction. You just have to put them in an environment where and if you put them in an environment where they grasp it, they love it. Because during the holidays, we actually put some board games together and we put it in front of them. and they loved the interaction, and like nobody was looking at their phone. Nobody was trying to like, I gotta go. They really grasped the interaction, the board games, and the interaction with everybody around the table. So I think part of it is really, what are we doing, right? Because we're exhausted. We just don't have the time. Like we don't have the time. It takes a lot of energy to get somebody to interact with you that may not want to interact with you. But once you get them going, they actually like really enjoy it, and you can see them like brightening up.
Oh yeah, because it's practical, tactical right there. They're touching, they're hearing like someone sigh or breathe when they get whatever card dealt or something pulled. Like they're seeing other human emotions.
Yes.
So yeah, we just need to foster more of that possibly, and taking the downtime of really pulling the plug on a lot of things.
I mean, I point that out because I think, I fall into that. So we still have to like
model that,
like put the effort.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes we just get overwhelmed with our own, like what we have to do, but then we miss out. And so it reminds me like, hey, we're still the adults. We got to figure out like, yeah, they may not want to interact with you. We know it, but it's our job to figure out how to interact with them.
Yeah, true that. Yeah. So to end this,
yes,
as educators, Dawn Marie and Russ, do you guys use AI? Like in your teaching, or, do you even use it for grading? Like, does it get to that point, or do you guys
I haven't used it for grading. I've used it more to, like I said, edit if I'm writing an IEP response or 504 response. I might do. So I used to have a counterpart in my office. And
What?
I used to brain dump, and then we used to go back and forth like, hey, how's this sound if you were to read this? So I don't have that counterpart anymore. So I use that. I'm like, okay, I put in like, please clean up this paragraph that I wrote, and they might clean it up, and I look at it and like, okay, this makes sense or not. So I've only used it in that aspect. I've seen online how other educators use it. And this is something I want to explore a little bit more, is how they use it for maybe a student with ADHD or something, creating a schedule and time map for them to do things. So using it more for pragmatics, I haven't gotten there yet to dabble in that. I've seen other people use it to write lesson plans, but only online. I haven't seen that. Lesson plans now, I'm like, I've been in this for 20 years. Like, a lot of that shit goes out the window.
I no longer have a choice. Google goes right to an assistive AI search tool, like as if I don't know what I'm looking for. So I have to be careful with my search responses because I don't intend to. I don't want to. I try and actively avoid. I am actively trying to avoid giving information to assistive technology and retrieving information from assistive technology, because that's not what I'm trying to ask my students to do. Like, we're reading Marcus Aurelius, which is some personal philosophy that a Roman emperor wrote to himself. And so my thing is like, read this passage, tell me what you think it means, and reflect on your own experience. In no way did I ask what the robot thinks. I don't care. The robot should be cleaning my floor. That's what I think.
Or shooting other robots like Terminator.
Yikes.
It's going to be very interesting how all this turns out.
Yeah, we'll see.
In the long run.
Yeah.
That's 20 years from now, what the AI is actually going to mean for all of us.
Hopefully by then I'll be married to my AI boyfriend. His name is Lars, and he just got out of prison.
There you go.
So
It's a motorcycle club.
yeah. So Russ, Dawn Marie, thank you guys for coming on. Don't forget, Russ is in a band, Uppity Dicks, right?
Real talk. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Yes. So check them out. Dawn Marie, Russ, thank you again.
No problem.
Thank you both.
Thank you.